to break the window and I fell down to my knees. Beg up, turn around, coming back for more. I do believe he's taking off full speed and locked the door. Lord. Well, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. He stole my champagne bottle and my lucky silver cross. My baby gave him to me and I can't believe they're lost. Wish I could remember where I was when this began. Another drink, I start to think the bottle is my friend. My friend. My friend. Long black limousine, won't you drive me home? I've been drinking all damn day, and now I got to go. Now if you see that limousine driving down the street, take my advice, no, don't think twice. Call the state police. Well, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, no, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No. Take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, 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 it won't be long.
It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talking Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you listen, hope you're doing all right. We've got a busy show scheduled for today to close out the week. And but first, the show is being brought to you in part by Contender and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That's Contender and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099, 845-221-4099. The show is also being brought to you in part by the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, and their event that's going on November 16th. It's in the afternoon. It'll be on NBC Sports, and the main event, a heavyweight matchup between Tomas Adamek and V. Glaskov. Get yourself some tickets right now by visiting the Turning Stone box office, www.turningstone.com, or visit Ticketmaster. You can also call Turning Stone by the number, which is 315-361-7469, 315-761-7469. When you get yourself some tickets, I saw that at $25. Drop me an email. If enough people are going to go up, I'm considering having a Billy C get-together, which ought to be fun. And speaking of Billy C get-togethers, if you're interested in being part of our live broadcast, we're considering doing a Billy C get-together in South Florida for the Manny Pacquiao fight. I'm just curious to know who's interested. If you want to be part of it, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, that's TALKINBOXING.com, and I can give you the lowdown on that. And the show is also being brought to you in part by The Gentleman Boxer. It's a great book about Joe Grimm, but it's much more than the story of Joe Grimm and his fantastic boxing career. It also tells the story of some other great fighters of the 1920s, a must-read for any boxing fan, whether you're an experienced, knowledgeable chap or whether you know nothing. Get yourself a copy of the book by visiting my man Ian Grumeza, who's the author. His website, www.iangrumeza.com. That's IONGRUMEZA.com. And also the show's being brought to you in part by the Titty Grab Game. That's right, I said it. It's called the Titty Grab Game. For all the information about the game, visit the website, www.tittygrab.com. If you've ever heard the commercial on LDL TV, that's exactly. She goes, "It's the Titty Grab Game," But anyway, coming up in a little bit, we're gonna have Scotty Krause join us, get his thoughts on the big fights for this weekend. Hey, Porky. Speaking about the big fights for this weekend, we got 11 that are left on our Billy C Challenge. One was scratched, and there's a strong possibility there's a second one scratched. But I have 11 fights on the challenge. I'm going to break down each fight and give you my predictions. If you're not involved with the challenge, you still got time to win a couple of months' worth, and also even the year-end prize. We are going to change some stuff around with the challenge. A lot of stuff we're only going to announce winners here on the show. So if you're part of the challenge, you better start listening to the show. That's all I can say. We also got another great fight added to the Manny Pacquiao card, which is taking place in China in a few weeks. Remember I was telling you about the Guillermo Jones and Dennis Ledebev and the ridiculous move that the WBA did? Well, I got an update on that. Deontay Wilder, in his wildest dreams, thinks he's ready for a world title shot. Whether he is or whether he isn't, what makes me sick about it is the fact that he's going to get a chance. What bothers me is that today's boxing road to a world title, if you got a good promoter with money, that's all you need. It means nothing about climbing the ladder of a contention, and that's what I feel world champions should be. I think that they should, when they start out and they're protected or whatever, if they're with the right people, fine. But I feel at some point in time, they have to climb the contention ladder just like anyone else, meaning they have to fight at least 2 or 3 guys that are ranked in the top 10 and earn a shot at a title, not just activity. And we've seen the requirement of just being active getting you a title shot for much too long now. Not just with Deontay Wilder, but with a lot of fighters, even Demetrius Andrade, who's getting a title shot. I mean, when you think about it, he didn't actually climb the ladder the way he should have. So I got some opinions on that. I'll talk about that. Carl Froch, who's scheduled to fight Georgie Groves, is already looking past Groves, and we'll tell you who he's looking at. Juan Manuel Marquez, I'm starting to rapidly lose respect for Juan Manuel Marquez and his crybaby antics and his coulda, woulda, maybe, I may not. I mean, somebody just needs to beat the shit out of him. I mean, I can't say it any other way. I mean, he really needs to get the shit knocked out of him because, the bottom line is, he doesn't accept any loss. And now he's acting like, he's the cat's meow. Personally, I don't care if he fights or not. I don't care if he gets a rematch with Timothy Bradley. The only fight I care to see him fight is another fight with Pacquiao, and that's only because I feel he owes it to him. Apparently, he doesn't. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And Oleg Moskayev getting back in the ring a little bit later, and all of that's coming up. We also got several really, really good emails, so I will talk about those as well. Now, normally I'm taking a break right now, but I'm not because I started 2 minutes late. All right, and I already got guys in the chat room. Maybe there's no show today, because there was 2 minutes late because of some streaming issues with the YouTube version of the show. So I apologize for that. But anyway, let me get an email. It's from my man Mickey, my drunken Irish man Mickey. Says, Billy C. I've been laid off for over a month now, and 'tis the reason for the binge drinking, yeah? He says, me mate said we should be back on the job sometime next week. I says, boys, till then, we're wrecking the city to hell. So last night we decided to head down to a bar in the city called Rudy's Bar and Grill. It's on 9th Avenue. Me granny back home knew more boxing than these wankers. After one Guinness, I said, F off, you wee tossers. The bouncer outside said if I want to talk boxing, I should head to a bar called the Cock on 2nd Avenue and 29th Street. We were a wee bit rode off and decided we'll check it out. Lads, I walk in, and this is a gay bar. I said, boys, where's that bouncer bastard? I'll rip his head off. A bunch of big stiffs walking around with their thongs on, with their schlongs out. I'm sorry. He says, this one boy tried to hug me. I said, listen here, you dirty bastard. Come near me and I'll leave you sleeping with the fishes. Me mate grabbed me and said, we better leave. We went back to Rudy's on 9th, and I seen the bouncer. I said, what do you think, you're funny? You let me tell you something, yeah? You give me a fair scrap, and I'll leave you hospitalized, you big wanker. The bastard ran at me, and me mate gave him a good sock. I followed up with a good boot to the stomach, and we ran back uptown. Anyway, Billy C., you'll be at this Stevens-Golovkin fight. No, I won't. Mickey, I think Dax is covering that one. He says, me mate's a big fan of Golovkin and wants me to check it out. I'll tell you one thing, Billy C., if you're going to go to that fight, I'll get a wee ticket and we'll wreck the city afterwards. Drinks on me, horse box. He says, you never see the movie The Hangover, yeah? I'll tell you one thing, Billy. I'll tell you one thing. Me and Billy C. having a wee night out could end up similar in the movie in The Hangover. He says, I'll tell you one thing. I know you probably will be dying to check out the gay bar, but the boys, a few spots that will have some fun talk. He says, looking forward to the show. Cheers. Nah, I'm not actually looking forward to the gay bar. But if you know where there's any women that are drinking whiskey, beer, what is it? Whiskey, beer, tequila and gin or something like that, wine and gin, and she's drinking all night. I got a shot with her, and I want you to hook me up with a female. I don't want no gay bar. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just it's not my thing. But you're always funny to listen to, Mickey. That's for sure. We got another one. This one's from my man Giovanni. Oh, come on, man. Giovanni, you're nowhere near a drunken Irish bastard, but yet he's talking like an Irishman. He says, Billy C, I seen Star Boxing's back with another joke of a card. Chris Algeria is fighting a local UPS driver for some crap title. How do these clowns make a living off these horrible shows? I can put up a better fight than these opponents. Where do I sign up? It's like this, Giovanni. Star Boxing, I agree with you. I can't stand when they don't step up their level of opposition. But I got to hand it to Joe DeGuardi and Star Boxing. He's made a pretty decent living off of being a big fish in a little pond, so to speak. He's got his local fighters like Chris Algieri, who they fight down at the Paramount. And the people go and they want to see him. They don't care if he's fighting a UPS guy or a real fighter. They don't care. And, that's how they do it. I hate it. Yeah, and the real reason why I hate it, I like it from my friend Joe DeGuardia so that he can make out well because he's, obviously not reaching into his pocketbook for these fights. But what I don't like is the fact that, your fighter's never being tested. So when he finally gets a real fight, he's going to get his ass kicked. We've seen it happen time and time again. So you're not really helping your fighter by doing this. But I agree with you, Giovanni. Another email. This one's from DeBoyle Rash. DeBoyle Rash says, man. What is this with all the Irish stuff? Man, I'm just wondering what your view is on fighters praising God and all that. He says, not trying to turn this into a spiritual show or nothing, but do you believe in God? And do you think God or a higher power dictates the fight outcomes and all that? And all that is ALLAT. I like that. First of all, yeah, I do believe in God. As far as do I believe that God or a higher power dictates the outcomes of the fight? Well, it's like this. If a fighter gets his strength from a spiritual belief, all power to him, more power to him. I don't think that it dictates anymore. In other words, if there's two spiritual fighters and one wins and the other one loses, I don't think it has anything to do with, the one that won maybe praying harder or something like that. I think like spiritual beliefs, that power comes from within. And if you can take it and turn it around and have it work for you inside the ring, well, then you were able to work it much better. As far as thanking God and everything, I really don't mind it if, they do it first and get it out of the way. The guys that start, doing other stuff and then remember that they're supposed to thank God, that's kind of a turnoff. But hey, man, whatever. It's a tough subject, and there's no right or wrong answer. But thanks for the email, Rash. I got another one here. This one's the Gift Media. He says, "Hey, Billy C, you missed my emails on Wednesday, but it's okay because the Chavallo blast from the past more than made up for it. But I do want your answer, so I'm going to ask him again. I apologize for that, Gift. I don't know how I would have missed them unless we got rocking and rolling on Wednesday. I might have shuffled my emails under the I already read them pile, and I apologize for that. I try to, I definitely try to get all of the emails. If you take the time to send me an email, I take the time to read it. So I apologize for that. The first question is, who's your favorite of the Mexican Big Three and why? And he's referring to the Mexican Big Three as Eric Morales, Antonio Barrera, and Juan Manuel Marquez. I don't look at them as the Big Three. Obviously you're talking not all active fighters because Barrera and Morales have both retired, or at least said they did. As far as Mexican fighters, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Obviously is up there. I don't have. I'm losing faith in Juan Manuel Marquez. I really am. I also really like Jorge Arce. I like him. I don't have anything against Eric Morales. I've always liked Morales, and I like Barrera. I mean, it's a tough question. You can cross Juan Manuel Marquez out of that list because he's becoming a baby. He's becoming a crybaby, complainer, excuse maker, all of that stuff. Eric Morales, I just think that, he stuck around a little too long, even though he's not even 40 yet. And Marco Antonio Barrera, he was unbeatable for a while there. And then, a couple of bad fights and a couple of serious cuts, and that's it. Good question. I think my favorite Mexican fighter would have to be Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., and I really like Jorge Arce. Nothing against those three, Barrera, Morales, and Marquez, but you can cross Marquez right off. I have no interest in him at this point. But great question. And the second part of the question is why the hot female boxers don't promote themselves the way Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate do in female MMA. Ronda piqued my interest so much that I actually now follow women's MMA. Imagine that, a boxing head like me. No, I get it, man. Listen, the problem with women's boxing, and I could have sworn I read this one, but the problem with women's boxing is they don't get enough support from the promoters. So if a female boxer doesn't get with a guy, or not with a guy, but with a management team that can see the potential, like me, if I had a Ronda Rousey fighting for me, man, I could make her more money outside of the ring than she makes inside the ring. There's no question about that. I agree with you. If they were marketed and moved along correctly, you're right. They could make a lot of money. I mean, I know for myself. I'm not a big tennis fan. I don't play it. I'd like to try it. I'd actually like to learn how to play. I never played it in my life. Never even held a racket in my hand. But have no interest in watching tennis at all, unless it's women's tennis. Then, man, I'm glued to the TV, and I don't think it's because of the tennis ball. But I hear you. Hey, look at Mariana Juarez. She posed in Playboy. Now, if you've ever seen her in weigh-in pictures and stuff like that, I mean, she's got a hot body and she's attractive, but nothing like when she was airbrushed and makeup and all of that for Playboy. I mean, God, she looked gorgeous. You look at other fighters that take that beating, like Mia St. John. There was another one that actually I think she turned into more of a porn star, and she was a boxer. She couldn't fight. But the bottom line is I agree that if they were marketed correctly, they could make a ton of money. Listen, we got some more emails to read. I got a bunch more stuff coming up. But before I finish the emails, when I take a break now, I'm scheduled to get Scotty Krause on the phone with us, and we'll get his thoughts on the fights for this weekend, and then I'll go back to the emails so we can finish those up. But first, we got to take a break.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Roselli Enterprises. Roselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Roselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RoselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOBoxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day. Everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. Glad you could join us. And I guess everybody's running a little late today. I got Fight Now is not connected yet. But speaking of connected, joining us right now, my man Scotty Kraus. What's up, brother?
Hey, not much. A half hour early, but that's okay.
I'm all whacked out today. That's right. Normally, I'm sorry. Normally, I call you at this time on Wednesdays, but on Fridays it's 6, right?
It's 6, but you know what? I'm glad to be on now.
All right. I'm sorry about that. I'm all discombobulated today. I got started. Hey, welcome to Fight Now, audience. I just popped in too, but anyway. Scott, there's some big fights this weekend. Again, I apologize. I'll get it straight next week. It's old, man. It's tough getting old, Roscoe. This is Roscoe Johnson on the phone, right? But anyway.
I hear you. We're in the same boat. Not the same age, mind you. I mean, you're
I know you're
a decade beyond, but
you're 30 years older than me. What are you talking about? But anyway, we got some tough fights this weekend that are on the challenge, and the first one I want to ask you about. Well, before I ask you, did you get a chance to look at a lot of the fights on the slate this week, or are you just pretty much up on the main ones?
Well, pretty much the main ones. I mean, if you're going to ask me about, something in, Thailand, and I might not be up on it, but, you can go ahead and ask, and I'll tell you the old
right
50-50 answer.
Exactly. You give me the signal. All right. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, because it's a really tough one for me to pick, is Javier Maciel going up against Brian Rose. Brian Rose is a ranked fighter, and I think this might very well be the toughest test. Have you had a chance to look at that one?
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
To be honest with you, that one hasn't really crossed my radar too much as of yet. a lot of times this half hour before coming on, I brush up on the minor ones because I know you love to hit me with this. But since you called a half hour early,
no, I'm sorry. All right, well, let's talk about the main fights. First and foremost, Kell Brook going up against Visenchenko. Zinchenko, when I first started knowing about him, I wasn't that hot for him. I just didn't think anything special. Then I started realizing that this guy is the real deal. He's can take a vicious shot and all this stuff. And then he loses to Paulie, of all people, Paulie Malignaggi by TKO. Now, I know it was because of cuts, and all of a sudden he seems like an aging fighter and all of that. Now, he's taken on a legitimate contender who is probably one of the only young fighters that doesn't have a title. Now I'm not saying he should have a title. I think completely the opposite. A lot of young fighters, fight the kind of fights that Kell Brook has been in, and they're already fighting for world titles. Kell Brook seems to be, being forced to take the correct road. But this is arguably the toughest fight he's in his career. How do you see this one going?
Well, I like Kell Brook. I just think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's a world-class talent. I think he's a top fighter in the welterweight division. I think that he is a future champion. And Zinchenko, like you, I think you just kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was liking what I was seeing, and then he goes and he gets stopped by Paulie Malignaggi in his own country. And now he's traveling to the UK, and he's fighting one of their top talents in Kell Brook. He would have to pull a huge surprise to beat Brook, especially over in the UK, if it goes the distance. Maybe if he pulls out, we know he can go to the body. We saw that against Ricky Hatton, obviously. He does good body work. If he can go to Brook's body, work the body, slow him down, maybe he has a shot. But I think this fight's going to be all Kell Brook. I think I really like Brook. I think he's a special fighter, and I hope that, like you said, we don't see him rushed. I don't think he has, and hopefully he won't be. But I like Brook all the way in this fight.
Deontay Wilder, I don't care much for him at all. I think he's overrated, and I don't like his antics and stuff. However, earlier this week, I gave him kudos because he seemed to have toned it down a little bit. He said that, don't worry, be patient. I'm going to be a champion. I don't mind that kind of talk at all, Scotty. You and I share the same opinion. What I can't stand is the guy that's pounding on his chest when he beats a guy like he's going to beat on Saturday, and Nikolai Firth is saying he's the best. Do you think he understands that he's got to tone it down, or do you think we're going to see the old pounding on the chest after Firth is counted out?
I think as soon as Firth is counted out, if there's a microphone anywhere near Deontay Wilder, he's going to start proclaiming himself the heir to the heavyweight throne and demanding a fight with the Klitschko's. That just seems to be his agenda so far. Earlier the last interview, he seems to have toned it down a bit, but I still think he's believing the hype and the record too much. Now, you said you don't care for Wilder too much. Now, I like the guy, and I'm rooting for him, and I really hope that he ends up succeeding. I think that would be tremendous for boxing, for the heavyweight division, for American fight fans to have finally an American heavyweight champion. That would be fantastic. But I don't believe in him just yet, and I don't believe the hype just yet, because here's a guy that was so raw in the Olympics. I mean, just so raw. When he left the Olympics, he had a lot of work to do, and everyone knew that. And pretty much the story of Wilder was he was the only guy to win a medal. I mean, if we had a decent Olympic team and we brought home, a half dozen medals, Deontay Wilder would have been lost in a lot of that. But the fact that in the last two Olympics, He is the only guy to even bring any kind of a medal home. And the fact that he was a heavyweight, it already sort of gave him some hype that he didn't need. He went to work quietly. We didn't hear a lot for the first couple years, knocking out all kinds of tomato cans and so forth. Now, all of a sudden, he's 29-0 with 29 knockouts. Starting to see him on television a few times. Dispatching these old former champions, and now all of a sudden the hype is really blown up. Partly because, again, there's just no one else in the heavyweight division to talk about, especially lack of American fighters. We've seen so many of them fall, Seth Mitchell being the latest. So it's one of those things where there's going to be hype, and there's going to be a lot of people who will hype him. He's just got to avoid believing that hype himself, and it doesn't seem like he's quite there yet, and that could be his undoing. And it's a shame. He may have talent. He still has a long way to go, and he needs to fight the right kind of fighters and progressively get better with the guys that he's in the ring with, and not knock out a guy like Bertha and think because I knocked him out, because I knocked Lakovic out, that I'm ready for a guy like a Klitschko, because that's like sitting in the sandbox and thinking that's the ocean, and then you go to the beach and you're like, wow, my goodness, I mean, this is a whole new world. He just there's such a difference in talent between who he's beating now, and not even the Klitschkos. Let's just even look at some of the top contenders. He really needs to gradually move up and just stop talking about the title right now. It shouldn't be in his immediate future, but unfortunately, because of the lack of depth, because of the lack of talent, because the Klitschkos have cleaned out so many others and may be looking for someone that might bring a little bit of hype, he may get that shot before he's ready, and that would be the worst thing for him, because if he's allowed to develop, maybe he'll end up being a decent fighter, maybe even better than that. Maybe he can be the future, but it's going to take a while. And I like him. I'm rooting for him. I hope it happens. But they all need to just slow that hype wagon down right now.
Well, unfortunately, and this is, as much as I'm a 100% advocate for the sport, and as much as I believe that we are smack in probably the biggest resurgence in boxing in the last 30 years, I don't like the blueprint that is so evident today. And that blueprint is, if you sign with the right promoter and he keeps you busy, you're going to get a title shot. Has no bearing on who you're fighting to get that title shot. Back in the day, you worked your way up. You started off, beating the normal guys that you face, and then at some point you graduate to contenders, and then you work your way through the contenders and you earn your shot. And all along the way, you're getting better and better because theoretically you're meeting stiffer competition. Now, I could make the argument that back in the day when there was only 10 contenders, number 10 was a really quality fighter. But think about Deontay Wilder, and not just Wilder, but a lot of fighters in other weight classes as well. They're not fighting contenders where there's theoretically 6 number 8 contenders across the board that you could pick any one of those 6, all claiming to be the 6th best in that weight division in the world, and he's not even picking those. So I mean, when you look at it in perspective like that, this guy isn't even close to fighting a legitimate top 10 contender. And, because of activity and beating the occasional name that's washed up or beating the Nikolai Firthas, he's going to get a title shot. And it's kind of sickening, and it really defines the state of titles and the value of titles. And when you look at the heavyweight division, I'm not so surprised. I wouldn't be so surprised if Vladimir Klitschko, and I was saying this on yesterday's show, Scott, if Vladimir Klitschko and Vitaly Klitschko, we look at them as the two-headed monster, the two-headed world heavyweight champion. I wouldn't be surprised if they retired together, because there's not much left for Vlad. Vitaly's, running for president, and for them to retire together would be a huge impact, and it would also open up the heavyweight division. And I was saying yesterday, man, what a free for all it would be in the heavyweight division if both Klitschkos retired at the same time. Could you imagine?
It would be crazy. Yeah, it'd definitely be a free-for-all, and you'd see all kinds of crazy things happening, and who knows who would be holding titles at that point that would never sniff a title if the Klitschkos were still there. I can see that possibly happening, but I tend to doubt it. I think, obviously, Vitaly is the one that's closest to retirement with his political aspirations and his age, and I think if he did, I would think Vladimir would want that belt to hold all the belts and to end his career with all the belts. I would think that, and I also think the fact that he's made 15 title defenses in a row, he understands history. I think that he'd like to go, I don't know if he'll get Lewis's record. That's still a long way off. It's hard to see that, but Larry Holmes had 20 in a row, and I can certainly see Vladimir getting to 20.
Yeah, but he looked like he looked like he lost. He looked like it looked like he lost interest in the last fight. He didn't look himself, and it wasn't because he was in there with a quality opponent. I just think he looked bored to me, Scott.
Well, he might be, but he's looked like that before in fights. He's fought that. Well, not that he's fought, but that's been a defining characteristic. When Emmanuel Stewart was alive and in his corner, how many times did we see Emmanuel Stewart start flipping out at the guy late in the fight and saying, would you, go after this guy? You got him hurt. You practically stopped him. You need to go after him. Go for the knockout. Do something. But he's so conservative. And so many times he has looked that way. So I'm not sure if that's hinting at retirement or if that's just who he is, and that's just how he fights.
Right.
But I would imagine going for history would be something he would want, and he would understand. And if he gets to 20, if you get to 20, then how can you not go for 25? I mean, it just, I would think that would be the goal. So I think Vlad's going to be around. Vitaly, not so much. But when he does, someone will probably fight a couple guys for that belt, and then then he'll have some incentive, and that'll be to get another title from whoever is holding that title. So we'll see. But as to Wilder, everything you say is correct about how the sport is today, and not only getting people title shots, but getting them titles. I mean, look at Andre Berto. I mean, who did he beat to earn a world title? And so often we see this, how guys are maneuvered throughout their careers carefully to the title shot, but also to the title itself. And then they're carefully maneuvered for a few title defenses, and then they finally fight a big fight, or they fight a top fighter, and they lose. And they're just not ready. And Wilder is certainly one of those guys that right now is far, far from ready. He might be ready if they're smart and if they take their time and if they progress. He needs to fight, in other parts of the world. He needs to go to someone else's country. If he's going to fight a Klitschko, he's probably going to fight them over in Germany somewhere. So I think that's something he needs to do. Go over, fight somewhere else. I know he fought Audley Harrison in the UK, but that's not the same thing. Go to Germany. Go over to Europe. Fight a couple of European fighters over there in their backyard. Acclimate yourself to what it's going to be like should you fight one of these guys. And there's other things that he needs to work on as well. Obviously, we know he can punch, but what happens when someone doesn't fall in the first round or the second round or the third round? And that's something they need to put him in there with. Put him in there with a guy who's not going to just fall down the first time he gets hit. Someone who's going to fight back. Someone who's going to give him rounds. Maybe not someone that can hurt him. What's the guy's name? It's not Taurus Sykes. It's another heavyweight. He slips my mind. The guy who's never knocked anyone out as a heavyweight. He's kind of a journeyman.
Zuri Lawrence?
What's that?
Zuri Lawrence?
Zuri Lawrence. Yeah, Zuri Lawrence. A guy like that kind of a guy. A guy that is going to give you rounds. He's not real dangerous, so you don't have to worry about him getting lucky with a shot. They've got to match it with the different guys that'll give him experience, so that when he does step in that ring with a Klitschko, he's fully prepared, and as prepared as at least as much as he can possibly be.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see someone like Wilder and an Adamek, not right away, but maybe a couple fights from now. I think that would be a great test for Wilder, because Adamek's a tough guy. He's not a super dangerous guy, but we know he's a good heavyweight, and if Wilder is all hype, then he's going to lose. So I think that would answer a lot of questions. But I would put him in there to feed him to a lion like that, and just have him get eaten up so young and so early in his career. I think would just destroy him, and I think that'd be a shame.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time. I got two. I want to talk about the other two fights, but real quick, one last thing on Wilder. I'd like to see him fight Brian Jennings, because it would be a dual test for me. I'd want to see how Jennings can do against a big guy like Wilder. The thing about Wilder's size is I know he's huge, but he weighed in at 224. I mean, theoretically, that's 20 pounds lighter than Vladimir Klitschko. And his build is just not. I don't think he's set up to fight. His build isn't the way he fights. In other words, he should be more of a finesse fighter, because 224 pounds at 6'7" or 6'8", however tall he is. He reminds me of who's the guy that fought Tyson, Razor Ruddock. He used to have a body like that. But anyway, we'll talk about him next week after he knocks out Nikolai Furta. But a really good fight this weekend on the same card, and I'm on the fence still with this one. Gabe Rosado going up against Kid Chocolate, Peter Quillen. Who do you see in this one? Who do you like in this one?
Well, I think this is the best fight of that card,
yeah,
and the one fight that I wish I was in Atlantic City to actually see, because I think that's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah,
I like Rosado.
Yeah,
I think the guy has gotten a lot better over the years. He started off kind of a club fighter, and he certainly worked his way up the hard way. He showed himself well against Golovkin, and I thought he beat Jay Leon Love. I thought he deserved that decision. So he's proven against top fighters that he's a good opponent, and he's a tough opponent. And I think he'll be a tough opponent for Quillen. But in the end, I think I like Quillen, because I just think the talent level, I think the toughness level, certainly you got to give the edge to Rosado there. But Quillen's another guy who I think lately has looked better and better. Early on, I wasn't as impressed with him, but his last few fights, the fight against Guerrero, I thought he looked good, and against Hassan in Jikam, I thought he looked pretty good in that fight too.
It's Nadam.
Quite a few times.
Now I gotta correct you, man. It's Nadam is how you say his last name. Come on, man. Don't make me have to start. Don't make me start telling you how to say stuff. Oh, what's happening? Are they having snowball fights in hell or what? Come on, man.
This is opposite day. I mean, what's going on here? You're calling me at 5:30.
Yeah.
You're correcting my pronunciation. This is crazy.
I know. It must be near Halloween or something, right? But the main event, Bernard Hopkins going up against Karo Murat. Scott, I always thought that this fight was a stupid fight for Bernard. It's all about risk versus reward, especially when you're a fighter like Bernard Hopkins, who's 48 years old. And incidentally, a lot of the publicity shots I've seen of Bernard Hopkins over just the last week, I didn't even recognize him at first. He seems to have physically aged, at least by, looks. He just seems older looking all of a sudden, Is this going to be the weekend that he actually ages in the ring? And does he come out of there with a W or not?
Well, I don't think this is the weekend he ages, and I think he does get a W simply because, I could just throw out there an upset and pick Murat just to kind of stir things up, but I don't have any legitimate reason to do that, so I'm going to stick with Hopkins. But it certainly is possible when you're that age. At any point, things could just fall apart on you. Now, we know how well he keeps himself in shape. We know the kind of lifestyle he has, which is why he's who he is and why he's lasted and this long and has fought as competitively against top fighters as long as he has. But there's a limit. I mean, he's not gonna be fighting until he's 70. I mean, at some point, his body is just going to show the wear and tear of the years, and it could be. And I agree with you. I don't see the point of this fight. I think it's supposed to be a mandatory defense, but since when does he care about that? Why not just give up your title and go for something bigger? Because who even knows this guy? It just seems like it's one of those fights where, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this isn't the way it's supposed to end for Bernard Hopkins.
No.
But you never know in this sport, and you have a guy like Murat that you don't know a lot about. You've seen maybe a little bit of. There's some video of him. You've seen him in a couple of fights, but it's not like some of the other guys that you see all the time and you have a familiarity with. You don't know what this guy's going to bring, and he's obviously, coming with the intention of being the guy who stops the legend, who stops Bernard Hopkins. There's a lot of motivation for a guy like Murat, just the title alone being one of them, but being able to beat someone like Bernard Hopkins is a huge motivational factor. And what does Hopkins have to motivate him? It's just an ordinary title defense. It's not winning another title from a top fighter. It's not beating a guy like Roy Jones, even at this point of his career, because he's an old nemesis and beat him years. It's not something I can see him getting himself up for. I don't know how he does, and I know he'd better find a way, because if not, then things could come to a screeching halt tomorrow night, and I don't want to see that. I don't want a guy like Karol Murat to be the guy that stops Bernard Hopkins. So I don't know. I think Hopkins should win. From what I've seen of Murat, I don't think he brings enough into the ring to upset the apple cart here with Bernard Hopkins. He should get by him, even if he is aging a little bit since his last fight, and it's not all there. I think just on his cleverness, just on his wits, I think he should get by and win a decision against Murat. How good or how bad he'll look, you never know. You just never know. Every time he fights, you think maybe this is it. And against top fighters like Cloud and Pascal and these guys, you expect it. But against the Murat, you're not so much. But boxing's a funny sport. A lot of times, what you least expect is what happens.
Well,
so it's just, I don't know if I hear you saying this, but I think Hopkins wins, but I got a weird little funny feeling about this fight, because Murat's just such a nondescript opponent, and this fight really just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. I just got that weird feeling going into it.
Yeah, I hear you. And, I've been saying it since it was signed the first time. There's so many other opportunities for Bernard Hopkins. I mean, there's so many other names that he could fight. Scott, we got less than a minute, and I wanted to ask you this. Bernard, whether he's full of beans or whether he's trying to, get himself in the mix, made some statements the other day that they're negotiating with Floyd, and he claims he's been asked if he would fight Floyd at 160 and blah blah blah. And I look at the fight and we say, what kind of motivation does Bernard have against Karo Murat? Well, that could be the motivation. And then I look at the fight, and I know that there's going to be Floyd Mayweather haters that are going to say, well, Bernard Hopkins is 48 or whatever. But that's the kind of fight that I want Floyd to fight. I mean, of course, I wish he would go after somebody else. But you know what? That would satisfy me personally. That would be a fight. Now, I know right off the bat it's going to be one of the most boring fights ever fought in the history of the sport. But that's the kind of fight I want to see Floyd in. Something that's outside the box, something that he doesn't have to do, and then look good or look as good as he can against Bernard Hopkins. What's your quick thoughts on that?
Effing men. That's exactly my thoughts. 100%. Everything you just said. I would love that fight. Absolutely love that fight. Not from the standpoint of the actual fight. Like you said, I think stylistically, you're looking at not a stinker of an actual fight. But in terms of a challenge, in terms of two modern greats who are both future Hall of Famers, who could argue, now, I mean, obviously Floyd, I believe, is the best fighter of this era now, but you got to put Bernard right behind him with all that he's accomplished just in middleweight alone, not to mention what he's done at light heavyweight at his age and so forth and so on. You're talking about two of the best fighters in the world, and you're talking about Floyd rising up to a challenge and putting some risk into his career, and that's what I want to see. I want to see risk. I don't see risk anywhere from 154 pounds and down. I just don't see it anymore. He's too good. If he's going to continue, I want risk. And to me, the only way is to move up to 160, whomever that is. Bernard Hopkins, to me, would make a perfect choice, because here is a great fighter as well, who also is willing to risk. And that's what I love about this fight, because Bernard would have to move down. He would have to lose weight. And I know that he's in great shape, and you would think if there's any fighter in the world who could do it, it would be Bernard Hopkins. But it's still difficult to move down in weight when you're used to fighting at a certain weight. But he's willing to do it. And he said he's willing to do it. And if he's going to take that weight off at 48 years old, go down to 160, if he's willing to do that, then Floyd should be willing to say, I'll move up. He don't have to be a 160. He could be a 156, 157, whatever. Get a nutritionist, put a few pounds on. But if Bernard is willing to risk as much as he is to fight Floyd, then I think Floyd should be willing to risk a little as well and meet at middleweight. I think it would be a tremendous event. And both fighters would be putting a lot on the line, and I love it. I would be all for that fight.
Yeah, you know what, Scott? I think, people are saying, oh, it's not going to happen. And you know why I think it may? Because if you think about it, we all know Floyd, and I said this yesterday, Floyd is a smart guy. I don't like him, but he's a smart guy. And here's the thing. We kind of saw the beginning of it when he fought Canelo Alvarez with the weight. When he had the 30-day weigh-in, he pretty much weighed the same amount as he did at that 30-day weight check that he did on fight night. What that tells me, and we also know that he doesn't, he stays in shape in between fights. He could already be slowly putting on the weight the right way. And it would be perfect for him to fight a guy like Bernard Hopkins, who, yes, is bigger, who, yes, has power, but we all know that Floyd I think Floyd beats Bernard easily. And I hate to say it because I know Bernard is such a trickster, but Floyd has that talent and the hand speed and the mobility that, B-Hop's going to chase him all night and Floyd's going to win a decision. But what's going to happen is that maybe Floyd's body has a transformation between now and the fight for Bernard that may lead to open the doors for a possible showdown with Triple G or even Andre Ward. I mean, that's what I see, a slow, methodical, increase in weight, doing it the smart way, all with him and his comfort zone in mind.
Absolutely, I like that. Looking beyond the Hopkins fight, the long haul. I think that's a good plan and a good idea. I love it. Count me. I'm all for it. I don't need to see anything at 154 and below unless it's Manny Pacquiao. Okay, but that's still probably not going to happen. So go ahead, move up, like you said. Do it slowly. Start putting on that weight now. I mean, you're Floyd Mayweather. You can get the best nutritionists and strength conditioning coaches in the world to help you. Do what Hopkins did when he went from middleweight to light heavyweight, and just pack on the weight the right way. You don't have to weigh 160, And Hopkins would be the one, I think, at the greater disadvantage because he's got he weighed in at 172. I don't think it would hurt him as much as most fighters, but at his age, it's still going to be difficult to get all the way down to 160. I think he can do it, though. I don't think he would put himself out there to do it if he didn't think that there's an opportunity here and that he could still do it. I think he could, and I think it would be a great meeting of two modern, great fighters, and I'm not so sure Floyd just toys with him and does all that with him, and that's why I like the fight, because it presents a style. Can Floyd figure out the crazy, unorthodox, difficult, frustrating style of Bernard Hopkins? Can Hopkins frustrate Floyd, who's used to fighting guys who are in there to come at him and usually fight him one way? Hopkins would be such a different type of fighter. Plus, he would be bigger. There's a lot of intangibles that there's no other fight out there for Floyd that these intangibles exist. So the intangibles make it a scratch-your-head kind of a fight and make you ask questions about it, and that's what I want. I want to ask questions about the fight. I want to analyze the fight, longer than 5 minutes, which is 4 minutes longer than most Floyd fights. You look at it, well, Floyd wins. It's pretty easy. This would take a little more, and I just think it would be great. And if he does beat Hopkins, then that's a great win on his resume, and it does put him in line for some other guys like Triple G, maybe a Sergio Martinez, maybe an Andre Ward. That I love it, and I love to see his career go that direction. I think that would be great.
Hey, Scott, timing is perfect. You're all breaking up now, but enjoy the fights over the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, my man.
All
right, I think he said goodbye, and listen, like I said, and I've said this before, I mean, I don't think that that Floyd has to fight Bernard, and I'm sure it's all Bernard's BS because he's been known to do that. But I think it's a good fight for Floyd, actually. I think Floyd would win. And I know that my whole attitude towards Floyd would change because even though I think that he would win that fight, and I think he would win that fight fairly easily because, and I'm not saying that B-Hop doesn't have the skill set, but you're talking like apples and oranges, And Scott mentioned era, said, oh, Floyd's the best of this era. Well, I don't know if we even should count Bernard Hopkins as being part of this era. I mean, he's 48 years old. A decade earlier, if you divide each era by 10 years, he's 38. And 10 years ago, people were telling, people thought that it was over for B-Hop. So it's almost like Bernard Hopkins has fought in multiple eras.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretch of that man, I would
think. You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
And we're back, and as you can tell, we're back sooner than we planned on it. That's for sure. But in any event, I got some more emails to read, and I want to get to that right now. And coming up in a little bit later, we got some fights that were added to the Manny Pacquiao card, and also we got an update on Guillermo Jones and Denis Ledebev. Juan Manuel Marquez, I think, has become one of the biggest crybabies in the sport. And as a matter of fact, I'm quickly losing all my respect for Juan Manuel Marquez, to be honest with you. You know, I think that the win over Manny Pacquiao was tainted. I know he theoretically passed all the tests and what have you, but I don't know. I just I think it was something fishy was going on. But and then his, I don't know, man. I just don't have a good feeling about Juan Manuel Marquez these days. But anyway, let's get some more emails out of the way. And first, we got Deli Boy says, no need, and this is a good segue to follow up with the Floyd. He says, no need for Hopkins to fight Floyd, in my opinion. I'd rather see him in there with Bradley or Garcia, although we won't see Bradley because of the promoters. I don't want to see him go down. I want to see him move up. And I think that he has put on the weight the right way. All the big Floyd fans say, oh, he's too small. But realistically, do you really see him going back to 147? It doesn't appear that way to me. It seems like he's working on getting him more bigger, and there's no one in 147 that makes sense to fight. I mean, realistically, yes, he could fight, a handful of fighters, and what's it going to prove? Nothing. You'll have the same naysayers like me saying, he didn't challenge himself. And then 154, you can argue the same thing. He beat one of the best guys at 154, unless he's going to rematch with Cotto. I could see that happening. I actually wouldn't have a problem with that. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure we'll hear something after the new year for sure. Maybe sooner, who knows. Yield to Fear says, hey, Billy C. Prudognikov versus Matisse, who wins? Wow. At this point, seeing what Danny Garcia did to Lucas Matisse, I think, that's a tough question, because I think they both have similar styles, and they both have similar holes in their game. I think Matisse has more experience against boxers, and Matisse, I think, has better defense. But Prudognikov he isn't a boxer, and he doesn't have any defense. I don't know, man. I just think, I think this. I think right now, Ruslan Prudognikov is a guy that, that kind of a fighter. They're around and they make a big splash, and then all of a sudden their career is over. I think if those two guys fought tomorrow, I don't know. Listen, I thought Matisse was going to give Danny Garcia a tougher matchup. It just aggravates me because you won't see it. You won't see Prudognikov fight Matisse. You won't see him fight Danny Garcia. You won't see him fight any of Golden Boy's guys who happen to be the top 4 or 5 in the division as far as my rankings are concerned. And the reason being is not because of a promoter issue. This time it's not because of Golden Boy and Top Rank. No, that's not the reason. The reason this time would be because of the networks. And we heard Art Puello from Banner Promotions say that Ruslan would only fight on HBO. So maybe we see Ruslan Prudognikov change weight classes. I don't know. Thanks for the email. Yield to Field's got some other stuff. He says, also, I read online somewhere that Kareem Mayfield may face Kahib Akudurov on the same card as Rigondeaux Agbeko. What's your thoughts on Mayfield and Kahib, and how do you think they'd fare against the other top 140-pounders? I know Mayfield called out Garcia, to which Angel said, you get no shot, and I know Kahib has a belt. Also, does anywhere, or I guess he meant to say, does anyone know where Lamont Peterson is? Isn't he supposed to fight sometime soon? Lastly, not sure if you heard about it, but I read Rosado saying Golovkin's gloves were suspicious, even though they both had grants on. LOL, that's how you know someone hits hard, when you both have the same gloves and the other guy's feels different. Golovkin, Triple G is, one of those guys. He's one of those rare fighters, that packs a powerful punch. I still don't have him on a pedestal yet. I think that, he's still got some stuff to prove. So before we put him on that pedestal, we'll wait and see. But I think that he is a hard puncher and he's legitimate. As far as Kareem Mayfield going up against Kahib, I think that's a good fight. I don't think either one of them are ready for those the top upper echelon 140 fighters, the Garcias and so on and so forth. As far as Lamont, you dummy, Peterson, it's a shame what happened to Lamont Peterson, because I thought that he was an underrated guy. To be honest with you, I thought that he was an underrated fighter. I mean, they took him lightly. So I'd be curious to see what we got. So anyway, thanks for the email. Yield to Fear. My man NBR. Oh, my guy from Portugal. He says, hey, Billy C, NBR here. Sorry about that unfinished email. Hey, no problem, man. I wanted to give NBR a shout-out because he's from Portugal, and I didn't get a response from Jeremy yet, but I think Nolan Fitzgerald is 11-1 with 6 knockouts. His loss, he wasn't stopped. He's ranked at number 367 in the world at lightweight. He's 22 years old, 5'8", 38 rounds as a pro with a 50% knockout ratio. His last fight was his loss. It was a 4-round decision against Emmanuel Gonzalez. He only beat 2 fighters with a winning record. One guy was 2-0. One guy was 5-2. I'm picking Robert Easter. The next fight is Jose Lopez against Jerry Cuava. Jose Lopez is 10-0 with 8 knockouts. He's ranked at number 315 in the world at super bantamweight. He's only a kid. He's 19 years old, 5'9", 23 rounds as a pro with an 80% knockout ratio. You look at his 10 fights. They're against the usual type of fighters. Most of his fights were in Puerto Rico, with the exception of the Dominican Republic, a couple of fights as well. He fights Jerry Cueva, who's 23 years old, ranked at number 330th in the featherweight division. He's a bigger fighter. 8 wins, 6 coming by knockout, 1 loss, 1 draw. He was never stopped. 5'5", 35 rounds as a pro with a 60% knockout ratio. His best win of his career was against a 10-0 guy, Juan Miguel Elorde, back in 2011, though. His loss was against Victor Sanchez, 2-3-1. Listen, I think although this looks like a good fight on paper, I'm thinking that it's not going to be as competitive as it may look. I'm picking Jose Lopez in this one. The next fight I'm picking is the one that's on the other side of the pond. Kell Brook going up against V. Sinchenko. V. Sinchenko is a former world champion. He was the world welterweight champion for a while. His record, 34 wins, 23 coming by knockout. He's only got one loss, and it was a stoppage loss. Here's the funny part. He got stopped by Paulie Malignaggi, who couldn't stop a fly if he hits him right. But you got to keep in mind that it was a technical knockout due to a severe cut that was caused by a punch. Now, the computer ranks this kid at number 21. He's 36 years old, which I think is important. He's got a 70-inch reach, 5 foot 10 inches tall, 217 rounds as a pro with a 67% knockout ratio. When he lost his world title against Paulie Malignaggi, he fought Ricky Hatton. Everybody thought Ricky Hatton was going to run through him. He ends up knocking Ricky Hatton out. And then he knocks out Carlos Adrian Jerez in his next fight. So he's got his last 2 fights wins by knockout. The thing is, you look at the rest of this guy's resume, even as a champion, he fought virtually unknown fighters. The only known fighters that he fought, with the exception, including the 2 fights I just mentioned, the Hatton and the Adrian Jerez and Paulie Malignaggi, he's got a fight and a win against Marco Antonio Avendano and Charlie Navarro. Every other opponent I'm not that familiar with. Now, he steps in with Kell Brook. Kell Brook is undefeated welterweight. He's ranked at number 6 in the world by the computer. He's 30-0 with 20 knockouts, 5'9", 69-inch reach. He's only 27, 143 rounds as a pro with a 67% knockout ratio. His last 11 fights, all against quality opposition, starting with Michael Lomax, Christoph Bienis, Michael Jennings, Philip Cote, Lovemore Nadal, Rafael Jakowicz, Luis Galazera, Matthew Houghton, Carson Jones, Hector David Saldavia, and Carson Jones again. Listen, this fight, I think is a showcase fight, and it's an important fight, especially what was out in the press earlier this week. I'm picking Kell Brook in this one, which I think is going to be a good performance by Kell. The next fight we're picking is the heavyweight fight, Deontay Wilder against Nikolai Furtha. Now, Nikolai Furtha, he's a guy that's a journeyman fighter. There's no question about it. There's nothing special about Nikolai Furtha. They call him Stone Man, whatever. He's 34 years old. He's number 85. He's ranked at number 85 in the world at the heavyweight division. His record, 21 wins, 8 coming by knockout. He's got 10 losses in which he was stopped 4 times. He does have a draw on his record. He's 6 foot 6 inches tall, 177 rounds as a pro with a 25% knockout ratio. One of his wins, which he actually won a NABA title, was a knockout over Tony Grano. He does have a win over Mike Shepard. He did lose to Alexander Povetkian. He's got a win over Ross the Boss Thompson when he went up in weight. He was stopped by Tyson Fury, and he lost a 12-round decision to Jonathan Banks. He's been in there with a lot of known fighters, but generally he comes up with the losses. Now he steps in with Deontay Wilder. We all know he's the bronze gold medal winner for the United States, our last male to win a medal. He's 27 years old. He's already ranked at number 12 in the world by the computer. He's 29-0. 29 knockouts, 49 rounds he's only went in almost 30 fights with a 100% knockout ratio. He's got an 84-inch reach, 6'7". Now, he weighed in today, and he made weight, and he weighed 224 pounds. Nikolai Furtha weighed 252.5. This is what I was pointing out when Scotty was on the phone earlier, that, at 6'7", 225 pounds, isn't that much, I mean, I don't know. I think this guy's got a long way to go. There's no one on his resume that's of any substance. If you want to use the 2 names on his resume, Audley Harrison and Sergey Lukaevich, fine. They were both accomplished fighters. But everyone else on that resume are all professional opponents. I mean, this guy, how he's going to get a world title shot for the level of opposition that he's faced is going to be a sin. It's terrible. But nonetheless, I'm picking him. I'm picking Deontay Wilder to knock out Nikolai Furtha. The next fight, I also agree with Scotty on this one. Scott said that he feels that this is going to be the best fight of the weekend. Gabriel Rosado is a former world title challenger. He used to fight at welterweight. Then he moved up to junior middleweight, and he subsequently got an opportunity to fight Triple G at middleweight and was knocked out. In his last fight, he fought J. Leon Love in Las Vegas. He initially lost a close decision, which I felt he won the fight, but then it was overturned to a no contest because J. Leon Love tested positive for a steroid. Rosado's record is 21 wins, 13 come by knockout, 6 losses. He was stopped twice, once Triple G, and the other stoppage was against Alfredo Angulo. And he's got the no contest. He's 6 foot tall. The computer ranks him at number 14 as a middleweight, 181 rounds as a pro with a 46% knockout ratio. This guy's been in tough since day one. Philly fighter. You know, there's nothing negative I could say about Gabe Rosado. I love this kid. I really do. Now, he steps in with Peter Quinlan, Kid Chocolate. He's currently the WBO World Middleweight Champion. He's undefeated, 29-0 with 21 knockouts. His last 4 fights were against quality opposition, starting with Greg McEwen. He knocked him out in 6. McEwen was 19-1. He fought Winky Wright, came out of retirement, won a 10-round decision. Had Winky in some trouble in that fight, but didn't put him away. He fought in one of the most entertaining fights I've seen in a long time. Hasim Nadam, he won a 12-round decision. What kept Nadam up? I don't know. But what kept Quinlan up? I don't know. He was taking some shots as well. In his last fight, he overwhelmed Fernando Guerrero in 7. I think this is a guy that has gotten better and better since he's gotten his title. He also started training with Freddie Roach. You know, I love this fight, but I also love picking underdogs, and I'm going with one here. I'm picking Gabe Rosado to upset Peter Kid Chocolate Quinlan. Look for a rematch in this fight because Rosado's going to win, and then they're going to force a rematch with Quinlan. But I'm picking Gabe Rosado in a huge upset on Saturday night. And finally, the last fight that I'm going to pick, of course, Bernard Hopkins against Cairo Murat. Cairo Murat is a light heavyweight. He's not ranked because he hasn't fought in over a year, exactly 1 year and 4 months. His record, 25 wins, 15 come by knockout. He's got 1 loss in which he was stopped by Nathan Cleverly back in 2010, and he's got a draw. He's got a 70-inch reach, 5'10.5", 169 rounds as a pro with a 56% knockout ratio. He fought 2 fights against Gabe Campillo. One time he won a majority decision in 2008, and he had a rematch in 2011, which was a draw. A couple of big wins, Tony Carpensy, and like I mentioned, Campillo and Otis Griffin. His only loss was against Nathan Cleverly, and that draw was against Campillo. Now he's stepping in the ring with arguably one of the best pound-for-pound fighters that are active today in Bernard Hopkins. He's a former middleweight world champion. He's currently a world light heavyweight champion. His record, a stellar one, 53 wins, 32 coming by knockout. He's got 6 losses, never has been stopped, and like he puts it, he's never been whooped. He's got 2 draws on his record. The computer ranks the 48-year-old Bernard Hopkins at number 1 in the world at light heavyweight. He's 6'1", 75-inch reach, 470 rounds as a pro. Does it really make sense for you to hear all the opponents that he's fought? When he was a middleweight world champion, Oscar De La Hoya, Howard Eastman, Jermaine Taylor a couple of times, which he lost. I felt he won those fights. He had a big win over Antonio Tarver, Winky Wright. He did lose to Joe Calzaghe, which I thought he won. I thought he was robbed in that fight. The Kelly Pavlik fight turned his career around. He was over the hill, and he beats Kelly Pavlik. He beats Roy Jones Jr. He had a controversial draw against Jean Pascal, and then he won the title back from Pascal in 2011. 2 fights against Chad Dawson. One was a no contest with the old shoulder injury. Second one he lost. I can't stand Chad Dawson. Both those fights were terrible. In his last fight, he got a 12-round decision over Tavorius Cloud. I mean, this guy has just been around forever. You know, Here's the thing. Both of them weighed in. Carol Murat weighed 174, and Bernard Hopkins weighed 172.5. It's all about risk versus reward. And personally, I think there's a lot more risk in this fight than reward for Bernard Hopkins. I think he is thrown out that, Mayweather thing, maybe for a little self-motivation to get up for this fight. Should he lose this fight by a decision, I don't think it'll be the end of Bernard. I think Bernard will continue on. But I think I think if he wins this fight, he may get a shot at Mayweather. It kind of makes sense to me. Therefore, even though it's a high-risk, low-reward fight, I see Bernard Hopkins winning this fight. I would be shocked if he loses. I don't think it's going to be an exciting fight, but it's going to be one worth watching. So, in no particular order, I'm picking Kell Brook over Vichenko, B-Hop over Carol Murat. I'm picking the huge underdog, Gabe Rosado over Peter Quinlan. I'm picking Deontay Wilder over Nikolai Further, Jose Lopez against Jerry Cueva, Robert Easter against Noel Echeverria, Javier Maciel against Brian Rose. That's another underdog, I guess. Anthony Joshua against Paul Butlin. I'm picking Francisco Piata against Brian Minto, Adam Etches over Alexandra Mendez, and Jack Colque over Guido Nicolas Pinto. Now, if you're part of the challenge and you're wondering what happened to Miguel Vasquez against Ameth Diaz, that fight was scratched this morning because Ameth Diaz never got onto the plane, man. The plane. He never got on the plane, so they had to cancel it. So that's the reason why that fight has been removed from the challenge.
It's too early for a trivia question.
Alrighty then. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question is being sponsored by the Gentleman Boxer. You got to, you got to get this book, man. It's more than the story of Joe Grimm. It's a piece of boxing history. This is the type of book that, if you talk to your grandparents or you talk to your grandparents or your parents and ask them about their grandparents or parents, guaranteed one of them was a boxer, and that's what this book is about. Boxing was really popular in the 20s. Everybody had a relative that was involved. That's what this book is about. That's what you need to learn and why boxing was such an important part of our culture, and that's what will explain it to you, Ian Grumeza's book. Get it by visiting his website, www.iangrumeza.com. That's IONGRUMEZA.com. The trivia question is also being brought to us in part by the Titty Grab game. It's an adult game. Check out the website for all the information about that, www.tittygrab.com. And also the trivia question is being brought to us in part by the Turning Stone Resort and Casino and their big heavyweight event, which is taking place on November 16th. Get yourself some tickets. Visit the Turning Stone website, www.turningstone.com, or call their box office, 315-361-7469. Get yourself some tickets. They start out at $25. There's not a bad seat in the house. As soon as you get tickets, drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. And we can arrange to hook up, man, because I definitely want to meet all the viewers and the listeners. And if we get enough people going, I'm going to do a Billy C get-together, and I'll try and get some celebs to travel with us, and we'll go from there. But today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question, which is supplied to us by our very own trivia question guru, Henry Haskup, is another good one. Man, I just want to thank everybody that's already put in answers. Unfortunately, nobody's gotten it correct yet, but we've had a slew of fantastic answers from you guys the last couple of days. So I have confidence that you are going to get this one right. Here's the question. Who was the first fighter to have world title fights in 3 different decades? Who was the first fighter to have world title fights in 3 different decades? If you know this answer and you're the first one to email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, you will win the prize. That's right. Here's the question one more time. Who was the first fighter to have fought world titles in 3 different decades? I don't want to give you a hint yet. I don't want to give you a hint yet because everybody was just so close, man. You're not thinking of this guy. You're not thinking of this guy. You're thinking around the same times, but a lot of you aren't thinking of this guy. And the last fight was one of the most important fights in heavyweight history. That's all I'm going to say. All right? So good luck to everybody. First one to email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com will win the prize.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Contender and Tomkovich. Blah, 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 blah. It's Halloween. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That is Contender and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. Tell him Billy C sent you, and don't forget to tell him I'm picking up the consultation fee. Call him today. On this day, October 25th, 1968, Freddie Little knocks out Sandro Mazzanotti in the 9th round to win the World Junior Middleweight title. That took place in Rome. On this day, October 25th, in 1960, Alphonse Halami wins a 15-round decision over Freddie Gilroy to win the vacant European World Bantamweight title. That took place in London. On this day in 1990, Ricardo Lopez knocks out Hideki Oshahi in the 5th round to win the WBC strawweight title. It took place in Tokyo. On this day in 1980, Mike Weaver knocks out Jerry Coetzee in the 13th round to retain his WBA World Heavyweight title. It took place in South Africa. On this day, October 25th in 1986, my man, Mike the Body Snatcher McCallum, knocks out Saeed Sakuma in the 9th round to retain his WBA World Junior Middleweight title. It took place in Paris, France. That fight took place in France. And finally, on this day, October 25th, 1990, can you believe it was that long ago, Evander Holyfield knocks out Buster Douglas in the 3rd round to win the World Heavyweight title. And that took place on this day, October 25th in 1990 in Las Vegas. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. Don't forget, we got a lot of fights on tap this weekend. Enjoy them all. Make sure you watch them. Make sure you tune in here Monday so we talk about them. Join our Facebook group, Talking Boxing with Billy C. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com. Buy a copy of the books and all the other stuff we promote, all that happy stuff. And one last thing. Would you become a premium podcast subscriber? We need your support. It's only $15 a year. It'll help us out a lot. Oh, yeah, one more thing to say. Make sure you tune in Monday evening, same bat time, same bat channel. There's only one channel, the Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider and tell them you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel line. It's that simple. Pick up the phone and call. Only information about Fight Now can be found on their website, www.fightnow.com. See you all Monday. Have a great weekend. Ciao, baby.